a lot of attention goes to mammals in these landscapes, but birds, they're amazing and very overlooked a lot of the time, but they can tell you a lot about the health of an ecosystem. Birds are really great indicators, so I think more and more people should be studying
Especially,
birds.
like we mentioned it earlier, the fences and all that, you know, like if a mammal disappears from a fenced area, it's that reserve's problem. If birds disappear from an area, it means it's a landscape problem. So something bigger is happening that's not being checked. And I think you can use that to kind of identify what's going on and what needs to be addressed, which is overlooked massively.
Yeah,
The regenerative way begins where the pavement ends. I'm Ryan Snosky, bringing forward conversations with researchers, conservationists, educators, guides, and knowledge keepers from around the world to help us reconnect with the land. These are stories born in the field, raw, unpolished, and shaped by the landscapes that hold them. Together we explore what it means to come back into relationship with land, with food, with wild places that shape who we are. Cal and Carrie, thank you so much for today. I sincerely appreciated going out in the fields and just getting a glimpse into the worlds that you lead. It's always so interesting to go into the field with researchers that are exploring, topics so dear to their heart. And, for you, Kyle, it's been 10 years. Carrie, I think it's been 5.
10 years with the Ground-Hornbills, but 6-7 years studying.
Yeah, which is incredible. And you pick up on this passion. Yeah. And it's such a gift to, for me to just be there and be immersed in that space. So definitely super grateful that I got to experience that.
Oh, glad you got to join.
Yeah. Thank you. Just before we dive too far into this conversation, do you want to just introduce yourselves and some of the research that you're involved in, and even speak to what we were doing today?
Yeah. Do you want to start?
Yeah. My name's Carrie Hickman. I'm from Scotland. From Scotland, and I've been in living in South Africa for 10 years now. And I originally came here travelling. Love African wildlife. I have since I was a little girl. So I ended up here and began my studying journey and my involvement with the Ground-Hornbill Project. And I did my PhD through the Fitzpatrick Institute of African Ornithology. And sorry, I'm absolutely
which you've just finished now.
Yes, I've just finished
as of
my
2 months
PhD
ago.
Huge
thesis.
Congratulations.
Yeah. And I've loved every moment of being in this amazing country, and I've learned so much, and I'm very grateful to be part of this community here and doing what I do and working on such an amazing species as well, the Ground-Hornbill.
Yeah.
And what a privilege, yeah.
That's incredible. So a dream come true.
Yeah.
You dreamt of being here and you've created
growing
it.
up watching nature documentaries when I was a little girl, dreaming of coming to Africa, and then actually now I'm here, I'm living it, and I'm immersed in it every day. It's incredible. It's amazing.
Yeah. I can imagine it being amazing. And one thing that has popped up in so many conversations of people following intuition and this pull to something that's guiding them, and it sounds like from a young age you had dreamt of this, and to be here and to carve out a life with Kyle, so cool.
It worked out. It worked out perfectly. I mean, it was similar for me. I've lived in the area this Hoedspruit area for 20 odd years now, and just by sheer chance I knew of the project, the Ground-Hornbill Project. It's been going for 25 years. I knew about the project, and I just heard, via the grapevine that the researchers at the time were leaving, and I was interested. And actually Carrie and I both, we drove to their door, knocked on their door, blind call what's happening with the project, and offered our services pretty much. Not that we had much to offer at the time. Had my degree, but and then they were like, great, sounds awesome. So I managed to pursue my studies through that. Started my master's, upgraded to a PhD, and now I'm doing my postdoctoral research on the species. So it's all just kind of fallen together.
It's incredible because for both of you, it seems like you just followed this calling, and this calling was there. I really want to explore that and try and like put this conversation a little bit in like the earliest stages of the earliest researcher in you, when you built that connection to the natural worlds and felt compelled to kind of lean into this lifestyle. Because even, you know, through conversations we've had today, there's a sacrifice that a lot of researchers like yourself make. There's not a ton of money. I think people have this idea that researchers and PhDs and there's a tremendous sacrifice that's made, but there seems to be this alignment with just a calling. Like, where does that stem for the two of you? Why did you carve out this path?
I mean, for me, we were talking about this, I'm a huge empath, I'm a lover of animals, so I just feel like my life should be protecting the environment and for wildlife to thrive. That's what I feel is my calling. And I'm so lucky that I've been able to go and study that through studying the impacts of climate change. I mean, that's a huge, important driver for me to feel like maybe I'm not making much of a difference, but at least I will. I'm trying.
You're doing your part.
I'm doing my part in something I feel passionate about.
Yeah.
And that's what gets me up in the morning. I love it. It's not always easy. There's a lot of eco-anxiety, a lot of hard things that you deal with, that you read about, that you're actually researching. You're seeing all these negative impacts of humans, of pollution, of climate change. It's sometimes really, really difficult, and it's hard information, but you just keep going because you feel like, well, maybe there's something I can find out that can help, or, you know, that's just, that passion's just always been there for me. Huge wildlife lover, and I think I'll probably be doing something along this conservation line for the rest of my life, hopefully.
I think for you, it's definitely clear for you, animals. You are just such an empath with animals that you absolutely. I mean, for me, it's been. I've grown up in this area. I've always known that I wanted to work with nature and things. I wasn't quite sure which path. There's a lot of routes you can go down. You can go down the research. You can go pure conservation. You can go into consulting. You can go into all these different kind of routes. And I was feeling it out, and this opportunity came up, and I think initially it wasn't something I thought initially that I was going to do for 10 years. I was like, wow, this seems like at least an interesting opportunity. Let me see what happens. And then, I don't know, I just started it, and it just hooked me. And I kind of knew that this was the path that I wanted to go down, and wanted to work with the species. It's not a very well-known species to vast majority of people, Southern Ground-Hornbill. You know, it's not something kids from overseas go, oh, that's what I want to see. You know, it's leopards, it's lions, it's all the big things. But you know, and when I started and we started learning all these, you know, you're just constantly learning new things about the species. It just built and built and built on my interest, and I couldn't shake it to the point now where I'm here. And I have to do it. I'm enjoying it, so making the most of it. You both seem to be making the most of it. There's a few things that I would love to explore, but just before I do, Carrie, do you mind just bringing up your mic just a hair? Just if you move the magnet up. I just want to make sure the volume's okay.
Yeah, because I'm quite soft-spoken.
Yeah, that's okay.
Is that better?
That's better, perfect. Two things that I think you touched on, both of you, that would be really useful to unpack. One is eco-anxiety. I think that is a topic that gets brought up a lot, particularly in the space of even my time being in South Africa. For anybody who's dedicated a life to, you know, conservation and working in the field and seeing impact, like, it's a lot, and it's very real, and it takes a toll on individuals, and there's almost like a conservation PTSD that I've picked up on. What are some of the things that you either draw upon, or like support systems, or like how do you reconcile, because you've engaged in this work for 10 years, you've seen an impact for presumably 10 years plus, and something brought you to pursue this work because it's dear to your heart, but in pursuing this work, like there's an undeniable cost that seems to weigh on so many people that are in it.
Absolutely. I think from my point of view, we've both seen people get, because it is that eco-anxiety, that people get all consumed by it, and it becomes this, it's difficult to explain, but it becomes this thing where all they do is work. And I'm not saying that it's a bad thing for everyone, but we've seen it before, is that if people are doing that, you're not getting paid a lot, and people burn out.
Yeah.
And completely leave the industry entirely. You're working excessive amounts of hours per week, not getting paid a lot, and then people just burn out and go, they need to change to something else. And they might have done a huge amount of work for the industry, but when they leave, then you're just cancelling out decades of experience working with specific species, working in a landscape. So for me, what I always try and do to kind of curb that eco-anxiety is I need to have a hobby of sorts that I can do, and it switches my brain off completely from the realities of nature, and it just helps me reset so that when I start again I can go, okay, things are happening, I can deal with them, rather than things are happening and getting chaotic about it.
Yeah.
For me, everyone deals with it in a different way. That's how I handle it.
Yeah. So that's separation.
That's separation.
Yeah. What about you, for you, Carrie?
Yeah, because it becomes such an overlap of, it's your passion as well. Not everyone has a job that's their passion. That's quite a unique thing actually, to actually love your job, and don't just see it as a job. And there's that it just overlaps and becomes intertwined with your normal life, even as a married couple. When we might go out for dinner, and we still talk about work, and
you just slip
constantly
into it.
Talking about it, and it kind of makes you kind of anxious all the time. So definitely having those hobbies that take you completely out of that, whatever it is. For me, I love trail running, some art. And also, we have like a good mixture of friends. We have people in the conservation world, which is really great, because you can kind of bounce those stresses off each other, which sometimes is quite good to have a vent, and they understand. We've got a lot of understanding friends. But then we also have people who we speak to who are not in that industry at all, and that's really, really important as well, because to remove yourself from the conservation world and have this interaction with people who are not in it as well. I think for me that really helps, and has been quite important for me. But yeah, someone told me about eco-anxiety being a bit like grief, like it's something you feel sad about what's happening, you're grieving what's happening, and almost grieving what you predict is going to happen, and you kind of catastrophize everything, and that can really spiral out of control, especially if you don't remove yourself from it, do something else, get out of it, because it's not a healthy headspace to be in.
No, it's not, and it takes a toll. And I think I fear that young people, because I experienced it myself, there was years where I was engaging with this work, but I didn't feel the passion, because I didn't feel like there was any tangible impact that I could make, and it just felt so overwhelming. And so many of the classes that I was in was like, oh my gosh, another massive problem that this world needs to deal with, and it just was all consuming. And I love that separation, because I definitely resonate with that. I think that's vital. But also the short time that I've been in Hoedspruit, it's cool to see there's incredible work being done, undeniably. And the individuals that are part of your network, just the pieces that I know of them, it's pretty inspiring. And there's a lot of people that are making this massive sacrifice to try and make a change, and just to be, situated in a place like that where there's those role models. Can you speak to that a little bit? Where do you draw inspiration from? You've been at this for 10 years. What keeps you in the game? What keeps you showing up and saying like we can make some change, we can.
That's a good
That's
question.
Yeah, I mean, I do it for the birds that I know and I study, and I keep showing up because every day I learn something new, fascinating, that keeps me hooked and drives me to want to like protect that for a little bit longer if there's any way I can. I'm not sure. That's a tricky one.
I suppose for me it's a challenge. It is. The inspiration is, it's not a very one-track kind of role that you have to do. You have to draw on all these different skills and develop all different skills to actually achieve this one thing. And I don't know, for me the inspiration comes in being challenged in that way, and I need to be learning constantly. So, if I'm being challenged and I'm learning new things along the way, simultaneously at the same time as helping a species that I really, really care about, and not just the species but the environment, then that kind of just drives me. That's my motivation. I'm getting all these things that I'm craving as, at the end of the day, as a selfish individual, you crave certain things, and I'm craving that information and that challenge and that need to kind of preserve this thing that I just love being around.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think you just touched on such a important piece. When a lot of people think about a researcher that's passionate about a specific species, they lose sight of the bigger picture. And you were talking about, this is a species dear to your heart that you really care about, but it connects to this
100%.
broader story. Yeah. Like, do you mind like walking through what that looks like? Because I have an image in my mind just having spent the morning with you guys out in the fields. Like there was elephants, there's Cape buffalo. There's a lot going on in the natural ecosystem. Yeah.
Well, this is probably your line of work.
Yeah. I mean, it's you have to think of it holistically. And although we're studying, a single species as the model species, it needs this landscape to thrive in. And especially ground hornbills, they live in groups of 3 to 4 birds in a group that need 100 square kilometres for a territory, and that's just one group. So they need vast landscapes.
100 square kilometres?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Per group of 3 or 4 birds.
Yeah.
So they really occur in low densities. But you start to see how the animals require the landscape and how the species interact with each other. It's also important, and part of my research looked at a landscape level study in terms of temperature and what was going on with the temperatures in these landscapes in summer and winter. Summers are right now hot, very humid, and winters are dry, but they're still quite warm, and you still can get these 30-degree days. But the difference is these deciduous trees all lose their leaves, and there's very little shade in the environment, and there's very little food for like ground hornbills that need insects, reptiles and snakes. That food availability drops because there's no rainfall. So what we think is a kind of cooler time of the year is actually quite a harsh time for these animals to live in because of this dry landscape. And then I found because of the lack of shade in the landscape overall feels hotter at the same air temperatures as it does in summer. So although we think of winter, the humidity is not there, it's not as suppressing, but these animals are out in this landscape that's actually very hot. There's less shade for them to move around in. There's less food, so they're losing body condition when they're trying to thermoregulate, keep cool. They're losing a lot of water. And then, so we're looking at this in a ground hornbill perspective, but every single animal in that environment is also feeling like that. And ground hornbills, they're birds, but they're terrestrial birds. They can fly, but they spend a lot of time on the ground, so you can almost think of them as these mesocarnivores in the bush. So you can kind of relate that to all these other small mammals that are also trying to navigate the same issues as ground hornbills. So that opened up that side of the study as to, yes, you're using one species, but you can learn so much from that particular species about the landscape in which they need, and it's kind of resonates with so many other.
I think it's just
species.
using it as a model. Using the ground hornbill as that model for the kind of bigger pictures thing.
But that was a result that we didn't expect that result, and I've been presenting on this, and everyone seems, it's quite shocking. Winters are hotter than summers at the same air temperature. I mean, it's wild to think that.
Yeah.
Especially considering that temperatures are just getting hotter and hotter and hotter. Because what you found as well, correct me if I'm wrong, but in this area, winter temperatures are increasing at a faster rate than summer is. So actually what's happening is that winters now are catching up to historical summers.
Wow.
Which is a scary thought. And it just kind of puts everything into perspective.
And winters are like this dormant season where animals just have to survive to get through to that. In impalas, you see them, they're skin and bone by the end of the winter. There's very little food for them. They've got to just survive that harsh time. But if those harsh times are getting longer and worse, that survival rate might just become less and less. And that's when you have
they mustn't just survive, they must survive and be in good enough condition in order to breed.
To breed when the conditions are good. And that's what you started to, Kyle's research kicked that off by, he found that hotter winters meant that birds were breeding later.
Yeah.
So that's what sparked that. Is like they perhaps are not in good enough body condition to start breeding, and if that keeps happening, then maybe they won't ever breed. They'll keep, because they can skip breeding years. They might skip 4 or 5 breeding years, but then better conditions never come. So those cooler winters might never come. So they might still live, but they're not breeding, and that's when you get populations that are collapsing.
Yeah.
And then that's led into our new research, which is, if these conditions are going to become more and more harsh for animals, then what are the landscapes that are important for them? If it's becoming more and more harsh, what landscapes can we help protect that ensures that they have everything that they need in order to continue to breed? So now we're using tracking devices to start analysing, what areas are the birds spending time in, and then working with management to see what can be done, because at the end of the day there's a lot of tourism, a lot of human movement in the area. And as much as we don't want to look at humans again for conservation reasons, humans are 99% of the time the reason for conservation even existing. So we're just trying to see what we can do to work with management to mitigate human impact and animal impact on these areas that are really critical for not just ground hornbills but species in general.
Yeah.
Just top of my head, I mean, we haven't got hard results yet or anything, but anecdotally we're thinking now that riverine areas are particularly important for animals during winter. But we are animals. When it's hot, what is the one thing we crave when it's hot? Is shade. Where's the shade? It's along rivers. So if humans are wanting to move into these areas as well, we needed to see where's that balance. How can we make sure that humans are getting what they need, but also not to the point where animals are being affected?
Yeah. There's an overarching theme that I think would be really interesting to unpack, and there's like a couple of different avenues that we could take it. But one, Carrie used the word holistic, and I think one thing that's really interesting is time out in the field gives you a comprehensive overview of some of the things that a species would be dealing with. And I think a lot of research is done a little bit in a vacuum, and there's some researchers that actually step into the void and dedicate time and give it consideration and come up with that holistic overview. But another piece that I think ties to that, and it also ties to just the life cycle of the hornbill, is I would like for you to just explore a little bit of that life cycle, because I think it ties that it's relational, and there's almost a century perspective that needs to be part of this story, and I think that connects to a lot of conservation. Is that it's not in a vacuum. You can't look at these species in a 5-year window. You're talking about a species that lives almost 100 years, which is there's so much change that takes place in the landscape.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You want to go?
I think you were talking about that quite well earlier, but birds live for 50 to 60 years in the wild. So this project's been going for 25 years, and you're still in the same generation of birds. You're still studying the same birds. There's these juveniles the chicks that we saw this morning. So you need that long-term research. You need that long-term population studies. And we've seen it change in 10 years, never mind 25 years, never mind the lifetime of a ground hornbill. And actually some studies, I could repeat my PhD in 10 years' time and probably get very different results, because you have more data.
Yeah.
So it's really important to build up those long-term data sets. It's vital. And we are also dealing with very small sample sizes with these birds. And I think a lot of endangered species, people who do research on endangered species, are endangered, so they're not in lots very, very available to study. You're having small populations. So, but then sometimes the funding's only available for endangered species, and those more common species that might be easier to study get kind of neglected, and those are the ones that might just go off a cliff.
It's reactive as opposed to proactive.
It's just kind of like, okay, we've got a problem with this species, we need to research to find out what's going on. But actually those more common species, they're also dealing with the same issues. Maybe they've just managed to navigate and be, they're less desirable in terms of the trade, thinking about lions and all those, and vultures and all these terrible things that happen with them. But they're just as vulnerable, and they're going through the same impacts as well, in terms of certainly pollution, climate change, habitat disruption. So I think long-term studies are super important, but not just on endangered species. I think it needs to be throughout, in landscape level as well.
Yeah, definitely. I think with this project that we work on, it's not something that we've started by any means. We've been on it for a long period now, but like Carrie said, it's been 25 years of this project. And ground hornbills live for 50 to 60 years. Historically, the whole work within the area was to see if what's going on with the birds, if there's a way to increase the density of birds in the area. And very early on, it was noticed that there's a lack of breeding sites for the birds. So they breed in big tree cavities, so holes in trees. But I think after 2 years of people working on the project, they found 4 natural nests in 200,000 hectares, which is a vast area. So they decided to put up these nests, artificial nests, to see if the birds would use them. And they have started using them very successfully. But we've only really started to see the success of these nests. We've known that they're breeding in these nests since they started, obviously. But we've only started to see the success on a population level recently, because the birds live 50 to 60 years. Their development is really slow. So it takes them 8 to 10 years just to get full adult coloration. So, it's taken 25 years of kind of constant breeding to all of a sudden now we've got groups popping up, these youngsters that have reached maturity and are start to form their own populations in the area. And it's only through that really long-term data and research that we've managed to even notice this. Without that, the population would be very minimal. And now it's getting to the level where the population's expanding out of our study site, and they're starting to repopulate these outskirt areas, which is the ultimate goal. And it's again just using this model of you need to focus on the long term.
Yeah.
You need to think. It's not always possible at the time, but you need to think of these things many years ahead and see what's going to happen.
And you talked about how funders, people who donate and fund a project, they might want to see those results quite, within a year or two, or they might think, oh, well, this isn't worth funding anymore because they're not making any progress. I think that's a lot of things is, finding those long-term financial commitments that will see you get to that success. I think that's a really tricky thing for people in conservation and research, is to get that sustainable funding, and then you might end up only really being able to run the project for a few years, and then funding dries out, and then you have to give up and move on to something else. It's a really big challenge, I think, especially in the African continent as well. Funding is not readily available for conservation and researchers.
I can imagine, and I think it stems from a number of things. One, it's difficult to look at these things through a systems perspective, but I think that's very much what we're talking about right now. If there was, variables that led to these birds not thriving, and through the foresight of trying to take action, we're now getting to a position where the population's starting to increase, but there's so many variables that are affecting them. And even today, during the car rides, like talking about elephants and the role of some of the dynamics within this landscape that do have this ripple and cascading impact. And I can imagine for a funder to try and wrap their head around complexity, it requires like a relationship with the landscape. It requires, in my perspective, time in the landscape, time with researchers, times trying to frame up this bigger overarching kind of picture. How do we challenge that gap? Because I think it absolutely needs to be challenged. And this is a common theme that's coming up with all the researchers that I speak to, is that it's so nuanced and complicated, and every use case or every scenario is very, very unique. But there's an overarching systems kind of perspective that needs to be brought in.
Yeah,
it's a big one.
It's a big one. Sorry. It is a big one. But it really, I've lost my train of thought now completely. It's gone. It's gone.
Yeah.
It's completely left my mind. I had something to say and now it's gone.
Yeah. How do we tell these stories for today? So I went out in the field with you. I got a glimpse into this story. And I'm walking away with, oh my gosh, I've just scratched the surface. And it's so much more complicated, which I think is what so many funders are experiencing. That they don't actually understand the depths of these things.
That's true, and that's what I wanted to say, was that we often, we've over 10 years, you go through phases and all this, and we've had some things where we've been massively criticized, and even couch conservationists on social media just blatantly blaming us for things we didn't even do, or nests being the wrong shape and all this weird stuff. But people don't understand how much thought goes into every decision. There is a lot of, it's not like we just thumb sucking on just doing this, we're sitting there and we're contemplating all these other aspects, and it's not just the relationship, interactions and interspecies relationships, but it's reactions with humans and personal interactions with humans that you got to kind of navigate, and trying to get that across to people, and so that they understand that the intention is there. But I think a lot of the time with funders, well, not necessarily with funders, but just in general, people come in with preconceived ideas on how things should function. But in reality, especially in conservation, as you've experienced the past few days, things change very quickly. You've got one thing planned, the next thing you're going to Northern Kruger to go work with lions. It's in the
Didn't
next
see that
hour.
one coming.
So these things change, and it's difficult to get that across to people. And I think I agree with you. Getting people out there helps. But we can't. We can't take everyone out with us.
Totally.
As much as we'd love to. And we do it quite a bit, as much as we're allowed, and trying to get people to experience what's actually happening. But there's also that fine line of of your primary goal with what you're working with. I might be going on a tangent here, I'm not sure. But, you know, you continue with what you're doing and you work on that and you try and incorporate people where you can. But I think there is a fine line that you can cross by making your focus incorporating people before you've got your targeted work. So have your work and incorporate people into your work rather than incorporating your work around people and showing people an experience kind of thing. Because as soon as you cross that, that's tourism. It's no longer conservation and research. And you need to keep that focus. And I mean, explaining that, there's such a value in showing people how things work and function, but you can't cross over into only showing people how things work. Because if you're crossing over if my focus is just taking people out with us, and we'll do any work just to take these people out with us, we're not going to be achieving much in the reality of things.
Totally.
You're not going to be actually focusing on the birds or the birds' well-being or anything like that. You're going to be focusing on your guest experiences.
Yeah, there's a lot of ethical considerations.
There's a lot of ethical considerations to it.
Yeah.
But in terms of actually getting that point across to kind of funders and things, I mean, if you've got a solution, I think every one of us in this area is all ears, because it is a challenge.
And it's hard because you see that, like, there's maybe that advantage of gaining some money from that, which we're all trying to find money in our projects, and we always need more.
Yeah.
So you're kind of drawn to it. Because you really have to think, is this a good idea right now? Is this going to benefit us and be okay for the birds? And like, for example, for ground hornbills, we don't do guest experiences when the chicks are very small, they're just hatched. We don't want many people at the nest. If the adult birds are around, we can scare them off for too long of a time, if they're too disturbed. The chick we saw this morning is almost ready to fledge. We're more open to having people with us during those times because the adults aren't around. They come to the nest once or twice a day. So that's where you have those certain boundaries, but I could see how you'd be easily drawn to we'll just do it this one time. If someone's offering we'll give you X amount of money, or people are just generally interested and they really want to join, it's hard to say no sometimes, but you do have to keep in the back of the mind why you're doing it, and it's important that those protocols are followed.
I think also from just experience that we've seen, some of the best funding that we've had is often supporting people, the people doing the work. Like, yes, it's the work that's making a difference, but when funders support specific people in those positions to do the work, it makes more of a difference. Because we've seen with some people we know, they've got funders and they've moved from project to project, but the funders go with them wherever they go, and it helps because at the end of the day, the biggest challenge for us is not finding equipment. Yes, it's not easy finding funding for equipment, but the biggest challenge for us is finding funding for salaries.
Yeah.
We are people, we need to live, we need to eat, we need accommodation, we need all these things. But as soon as there's someone who's like, that's fine, I will help you with this, it takes away the pressure on us to find our salaries, and actually we can then focus on work.
Totally.
To a greater extent than if you like, this month I might not get money. You might not make it to the end of the month. It does help when it's. And I'm not saying there are people out there that are kind of not the right people for conservation. I think we've got to call a spade a spade. Some people, as good as their intentions are, I think can be misleading about certain things. But there are a huge amount of people that really are doing some absolutely incredible work.
Yeah.
And with the correct backing and funding, I think, those people make a massive difference.
I think it's extremely well said, because it's even, I had a conversation with Dimitri yesterday around NGOs that have, solutions to human-wildlife conflict. And if they have a solution and they get funding for this solution, they preserve the intellectual property around that solution because it would jeopardize them getting funding. And it's interesting you're talking about funding the individual, because there's individuals that wouldn't think about that. They would say, this is the solution that can help a landscape navigate a very important problem. Full stop. The funding will come. And ideally, they're not stressed about funding all the time, but if people invest in individuals like this that are a bit of an out-of-the-box thinker. One thing, and it's not totally fleshed out in my mind, so hopefully this question is coherent.
Nothing's fleshed out in my mind, don't worry.
When you're saying if you have a solution, one thing that I have been thinking a lot about is I took an environmental governance class in my master's, and it was centered on, one of the themes was centered on this idea that science isn't necessarily equipped to answer these big ecological problems because the variables are wicked in nature. They're so gigantic in nature. And I think we're getting to that where it's holistic. There's so many variables. You're talking about 50, 60 years. How, what is the impact of if an elephant cull was to take place, within this landscape? How does that ripple? You won't see that for a variety of time, and research won't be able to catch up to it. And so I think a lot of people have been looking to institutions and expertise to answer questions that aren't suited to necessarily answer that broad framework. And it's the individuals collaborating. And we were talking about transdisciplinary kind of frameworks and ways of approaching, these conversations. I think it's so needed. And I think in some ways it's the piece that should be invested in. If people could identify, this is somebody who works within a landscape, and we've talked a lot about the variety of stakeholders that you engage with and the importance to be able to engage with these stakeholders. But there's got to be an ebb and flow. You're having a relationship with these people. You're considering what it is that they're seeing. What role does, I guess, that play in your research or how you approach the work that you're involved in?
Massively, doesn't it? Because we can't just do what we want to do. We might think, oh, this is a cool research question, but we need to apply it to what's on the ground, relevant, and also you have to consider other people's opinions and their perspectives. It's actually very interesting to talk to the different stakeholders and see what their opinions are on a topic that you feel quite strongly in an opposite direction. It's really important to listen to that, because I think you can, with the eco-anxiety, you can get very negative and go down one route and think, oh, humans are just, everything's just terrible. But sometimes just speaking to someone who's maybe a businessman, he's got a very different perspective on economy and growth, and it's really important to consider those. And you might not always agree, but it's important to have those conversations. And
it's important to disagree. But it's not to the extent that you are combative over it.
Attack the individual.
You are disagreeing for reason, and there's reason behind decisions. You just got to understand the other
perspective,
side
and maybe
things,
they will start to see your perspective as well. So it works both ways. If you can softly, don't be combative about it. You can trickle some of your ideas, and it may or may not influence their decisions, but sometimes it does, and you never know where that's going to go.
I mean, with that, I think one of the most important things that we've learned over the years is that sometimes a lot more can be accomplished, at least in this landscape, not through meetings, but through casual interactions and a cup of coffee. One-on-one.
Or a beer.
A beer. Often it's a beer. A lot of the time it's a beer, but it's just, it breaks that formal barrier and that tenseness around things, and it becomes more of an interaction with the person than an interaction between organisations, if that makes sense.
It definitely
because organisations is, there's strict policies and all of this and all of that. If you've got two people that are like, oh, that's cool, that's funny, this is cool about what we do, this is challenging about what we do, they say the same on their side, it becomes more of this connection and understanding between people that it does just make things a bit easier to understand one another. At least what we've said, and to some of our colleagues as well. I mean, Marnus will probably say as well, like, if someone invites you for a cup of coffee, like in the middle of the day in the field work, anything to do, any kind of stakeholder, you do it.
Yeah.
You do it. Whether the person's views are wild and extremist or anything like that, you go and you have coffee because it does just build relationships and allows it. Essentially, it helps us as conservationists and researchers to understand a different angle.
And at the end of the day, if you research you're doing maybe something you feel really strongly about, and you know it's the correct, or you think it's the correct thing to do, but if nobody's going to listen to you, what you're trying to say in that landscape, then is there any point in doing it so intensively if you're kind of disagreed upon? They're not seeing your point of view. You have to get it across in some way, otherwise your work kind of might be for very little reason. Not a lot might come out of it. Changes in the reserves in our landscape might not happen because you upset someone or you disagreed with someone. You have to gently try to navigate these relationships, and
everything's a spectrum, and someone falls along that spectrum. We are conservationists, and through the job, we're probably on an extremist side of that spectrum. We're probably far to one side of that spectrum, and I think it's important to think about it and acknowledge it yourself and understand that there are going to be people that are on the far opposite side of that spectrum.
Totally.
Whether you like it or not, it's going to happen. And the goal is not to get your way. I mean, sometimes it is. It's ideal, it's best for the birds, but the person on the far opposite side has also got incentive behind their decisions. And the goal is not to get your way, it's to find that middle ground that gets that works together, that transdisciplinarity, and achieves a goal.
Yeah.
There has to be that holistic goal that needs to be worked towards, and not just this is my thing, this is your thing. It's got to be, this is our thing.
Middle ground.
We want similar things. There are different decisions behind these things, but we're still going in that direction. Yeah.
But I think, just quickly, Carrie, do you mind just bringing up? Thank you. Sorry. I think it's interesting because transdisciplinary, when I got into, I participated in this program where you got really exposed to it. And it's easy to romanticize what it's like to engage with different stakeholders and considerations and have these conversations. But when you fundamentally disagree, you still have to process that disagreement, and you still have to, action needs to be taken. And I find that part, particularly within this landscape, such an interesting conversation. But to be fair, it's all around the world. But that idea of socio-ecological systems and problems. There's a social element and there's the ecological. And so often when I've had conversation, it seems like people kind of hone in on one side of that and the blend doesn't come together. And I think the blend is the nuance. But I've been guilty of, ecological priority, full stop. And then there's been paradigm shifts where it's social priority, full stop. And then it's no, don't do that. And I just find myself being humbled by it constantly. And particularly in the past 3 weeks here, just regularly finding myself being challenged and saying, oh my gosh, I actually don't know. And I don't know how I would articulate my opinion on this.
It's hard.
Yeah.
It's really hard.
It's really difficult. I struggle. I mean, my brain says one thing and the words that come out of my mouth often say a different thing, and I just can't articulate some of the things I want to say. But I think it happens, and that's another consideration, because that probably happens to everyone.
Totally.
That it's not. Well, we definitely know people that say some things, and you're like, "Wow, that's very aggressive," or kind of combative. But then just from knowing the people, it's not their intention.
Totally.
It's just their intention of trying to get the point across, kind of thing.
And I think that's so key, because it's potentially not their intention, but also potentially, I think it connects to the eco-anxiety, or like some of the reality of this work. You don't know what that person's day was like. So when you're getting an opinion that feels quite strong and combative, they might have seen things that you wouldn't wish upon anybody. And they might be processing in real time. I've been guilty of that through this journey, of just like coming on the back of one conversation. You would think that my opinion is so strong in one direction, but it's because you're trying to like really process these big pieces of this socio-ecological story that is complex. And I think it really roots into that idea of just like, there needs to be humility, I think, in engaging with this. And it seems like the two of you have grown in this journey, in really like diving into this work over 10 years and being challenged through this evolution of, you don't know what you don't know. As you start to get more information, it changes things. Can you speak to just, I think it's really valuable for, both of you have lived a very unique, in my opinion, research kind of life. Not many people get the privilege of going out in the fields like today and having moments like that. Like, what advice would you give to people that are aspiring, conservationists, aspiring practitioners, researchers that are trying to get into the space? They don't necessarily have a species in mind, but they really want to engage with this work. Like, what do you wish that you knew, when you were starting out?
That's a good question.
What do we wish we knew? Always have coffee or a beer with someone.
Okay.
Always.
Key. Yeah.
Always.
Never say no.
Definitely, if you want to get into the correct spaces within research and conservation, do your research on those correct spaces, because there are some spaces that advertise in a way that they are heavily conservation or research focused, but it crossed that boundary we spoke of being focused towards tourism as opposed to conservation. Some organizations have crossed that boundary, and it's all about bringing people in. And it's not necessarily a bad thing, but if you want to be in that pure conservation space or research space, find those really credible people, bounce some ideas, volunteer. I know this is controversial, but in my mind, no one should pay money to volunteer.
I agree.
It's simple as that. I think for a conservation industry that struggles with money, for people to earn income, it undermines the whole industry if you're trying to get into that industry by paying to be part of it. Because essentially what you're doing is I'm not sure if we spoke about it now on this, is that conservation or research seen as this elitist job. And if you're having to pay to be part of that, you're just compounding the problem. So for me, never pay to volunteer. That is probably my hard line, I would say.
Yeah, I mean, it's different if you perhaps looking for some work, like some kind of internship or something.
Internships are different, yes.
Yes, where you're being taught skills that might get you in the right direction. Fieldwork skills or data analysis, data collection, data analysis skills. Those are all really important things that are hard to get experience in. It's really, really hard. So, I guess reach out to organisations and see, do they need some help? They're not they don't need to be paid, perhaps. But just seeking out opportunities, I think, it's hard. But yeah, reaching out to people, and you never know, someone might just open up that door for you. And look for those things that really interest you. It doesn't have to be a species, but in perhaps a certain area that you would like to get experience in. Certain part of the world, or whether it's marine life by the sea, or in the bush, or in the desert, and start speaking to people in those industries.
I think you need to realize very early on as well that as much as, like today we were in the field and it was amazing, the reality of it is that is the minority of our job. The majority of our job is not that.
Totally.
It's hard graft, often very mundane jobs, often a lot of time behind the laptop, those kinds of things. Because a lot of people have asked us countless times, so when you're not out in the bush, do you just chill? Like, I wish it's not the case in the slightest. That's where putting all the information that you're working together comes together, and you need to put it together in a way that is addressing the target audience at the end of the day. Because you've got your academic audience that you want to target, but then you've also got the general public, which need to be a target. You can't just do, especially in the conservation realm, you can't just do this for science, for the sake of science. 95% of people don't go and read journal articles in their spare time, but they'll read magazine articles. And those are the ones you need to get that information kind of up there.
I was going to say, like, it doesn't have to be you going into being a researcher. There's many different roles that conservation has. It's videography, photography, journalism. There's so many. Science communication, I think, is something that is really important, as someone who can translate that information from a scientist.
Often complex information.
Social media or whatever. And I think that's where I feel like we need to, what we need to work on as well, is that science communication. Translating it to a much broader audience, I think, is really vital. And that can also be, artists as well, making illustrations. It's not just this research world in the field. You can do so many things from the other side of the world, even citizen science projects. Many projects will upload their camera trap footage that they just need volunteers to help them go through analysing imagery. And that's a really cool way to be exposed to some amazing footage. You get to watch from the comfort of your own home, you get to watch some cool camera trap footage while contributing to something that's important. And that's another way to get good experience as well. Is so many things online that you can volunteer to do in your spare time, and it might just be a hobby and you never go fully into it, but that's cool too. That's also conservation by being a citizen scientist. That's amazing. We relied on a lot of citizen science for our stuff. So.
We have, absolutely.
I think it's super well said, and it's interesting because even in my own evolution, and I feel like a lot of people experience this, is it felt like there was gatekeepers and it was all concocted in my mind. And when you just step into the real world where science is being done and researchers and practitioners and there's big complex problems, it's like all hands on deck. You show up and people are like, oh my gosh, you're here. Like, this is what we're looking for. Like, you could support here. And I think it's quite inspiring to spend time and place and to learn that. Carrie, I was wondering if you could kind of unpack how you got here, because in some ways I think it connects to this, that you followed intuition, and I think a lot of people have that, where you talked about empathy with the natural world and this connection to these animals, and growing up and connecting with African ecology, and you stepped, at some point you made the decision where you said, I'm going for it, I'm all in, and I think it's so inspiring. Like, it's so cool that you did that. Yeah,
well, I mean, I was lucky growing up in countryside in Scotland, in a small village. I was always outdoors. And then I I built on my love for animals by setting up a dog walking business when I was 18 or 19, and I did that for 8 years or so. So I was always out in nature, and I became, quite aware of birds. But when you're younger, you don't really pay attention to birds and other wildlife. You just you don't care so much, and I don't know. That definitely started that catalyst. I always had that love for animals and watching wildlife documentaries, and then traveling the world. Luckily, I was able to travel the world. I took some time off, and that opened my eyes to, from my small little village in Scotland to what was going on in the rest of the world, and gave me a lot of anxiety as well. I was seeing, a lot of cruelty, a lot of horrible things happening in the world that I was kind of sheltered from. So I think that probably was the catalyst, and traveling to Africa that opened up my eyes and made me want to go down this route of, I became curious and I wanted to continue studying in this direction, studying biology and how things work. It's amazing to learn about nature and how systems work. It's absolutely amazing. It's
always something that's going to surprise you.
Yeah, it's just a beautiful thing that, I don't know, I just feel like, I feel like I'm in the right place where I need to be now. I feel like I'm very lucky how my life has ended up here, and what I've gone through from a dog walker to a traveller to coming here studying ground hornbills. I didn't even know what a ground hornbill was when I lived in Scotland. So it's a very unique journey, I think. But I've loved every minute of it, and I think that early, like, childhood, being out in the countryside was probably the start of it all.
Yeah. It's interesting you use the word lucky, but when I hear your story, it's like I can imagine how much anxiety, and you're stepping into the unknown, and so it's almost shaping your own luck in a way. Like, it's not luck at that point. You were the one who walked through the door. The door was open and you felt it in your heart. I feel like a lot of people have that feeling, but it's
they don't take the jump.
It's a lot to take the jump, I guess. We don't have to go too deep into this, but I do find it really interesting hearing your story. Like, what advice would you give to somebody who is feeling that? Like, how did you left family behind, you left community, like, that's no joke.
It's really hard. Yeah, definitely really hard. The advice is it's hard leaving, but once you're there, it's usually always worth it, and we just had it now. We had family here, and that leaving, it's awful, it's sad, but it's okay. And if you feel like you're progressing in the direction you should be, then it's okay. And at the end of the day, I mean, it's not always an option for everyone, but perhaps you can go back to that old life. That door isn't always closed. So I think don't be scared to take those opportunities, because time goes by very quickly, and you can things happen very quickly, and you can change that direction if you feel it's not going in the right way. I certainly have done that. When my dog walking thing, I thought, wow, this is an amazing job. I get to spend the whole day with dogs out in the countryside. How cool is that?
That is cool.
The happiest animal. Like, every day I just have all these dogs that are so happy to see me. I thought I was absolutely in heaven. But after a few years, I wasn't fulfilled. So I think I always had that craving to push myself and be a bit more fulfilled, and
And it's interesting because that fulfillment has brought you to really, like, lay roots in a specific research field. Obviously with the holistic in mind and, like, how comprehensive it is. I do want to ask both of you, and, like, we spoke about this a little bit earlier, but, like, what does the ground hornbill mean to the two of you? Like, what keeps you so captivated? Kyle, do you mind actually just moving over a hair? You just have sun straight in your face.
Watch the rocks.
Sorry about that.
You've also got a grasshopper in your head, which is... Oh, no, you're on something there.
That's a good one.
There we go.
Grasshopper in your head.
Is it still there?
Yeah.
Nice.
Oh, that's kind of cool.
Cool. I'll take it.
You're one with nature.
Yeah, exactly.
I think with ground hornbills, for me, it's I just find them fascinating. Like, absolutely. I mean, I've been studying them for 10 years now. And, I mean, we discuss it every year. There's something that pops up and we're like, we've never seen that before. Never seen that behavior. Never seen them do this. We've never seen them do that. Never heard that sound before. And that just, I don't know, there's just always something that it's like insatiable. Like, it's just something that intrigues me about them. And they're almost human-like as a bird. You know, they live in these little family groups, and the most of the work is done by the parents and the elders, and then you've got the juveniles, and they really are useless. Like, they don't do much at all. They struggle to do anything themselves, and it's so interesting. I just find them absolutely fascinating. I just wish they liked me more.
Yeah.
That's what I mean. I wish they would come to me and just walk around me all day, but that's never the case.
Yeah, I think that might be why we're hooked as well. You would have seen today, we got quite excited when we saw the birds far in the distance. You know, we don't get to see them. We don't come across them very often when we're driving in the field. You know, it's a rare thing, so that, you know, gets us really excited to see them. They're elusive. We don't come across them all the time. They're very skittish. So I think as soon as you stop feeling that excitement about it, then maybe you should move on to something else. But for now, we still have that. And I think when you delve into researching an animal so deeply, and you watch all these thousands of hours of camera trap footage of behaviours that have never really been studied before, you're kind of the pioneers of that. So we're quite proud of that as well. We're the first to learn these things about the birds, and not a lot of work has been done on their behaviour. So when you spend a lot of time watching them on the camera trap footage, you do become immersed in them. And no matter what animal you studied, I think you would be the same. So I think it's just ground hornbills found us and we've become more passionate about them over the years. I think that's the more we learn, the more
there's just so many
we like
things.
To bore people with all these
like
interesting
bore
facts.
them with lots of information. Some of my research for my PhD was looking at their vocalizations. So they live in territorial areas, but they don't use scent or anything like that, like leopards or lions or rhino or anything use. It's all through vocalizations. And I was looking into those vocalizations, and what we found was that every group of birds has their own signature vocalization. So they actually recognize one another.
Oh, that's cool.
Simply from their vocalizations. And it's to the point where we've maybe lost it a bit now, but when we were in the depths of that research, we were listening to recordings all day, every day of these birds. We could, if we went out in the early morning, we heard them calling, we could start, just from ear, start IDing these different groups of birds. It was something just surreal about it. Like, we could ID that in that group of birds, even though they're a kilometre away. We're like, okay, that's that group of birds. We know who they are, and we know where they are, and it just hooks you.
Yeah,
it just hooks you.
It's such a privilege to work on such a iconic, incredible species like that. And I know a lot of attention goes to mammals in these landscapes, but birds, they're amazing and very overlooked a lot of the time, but they can tell you a lot about the health of an ecosystem. Birds are really great indicators, so I think more and more people should be studying
especially
birds.
Like we mentioned it earlier, the fences and all that. Like, if a mammal disappears from a fenced area, it's that reserve's problem. If birds disappear from an area, it means it's a landscape problem. So something bigger is happening that's not being checked. And I think you can use that to kind of identify what's going on and what needs to be addressed, which is overlooked massively.
Yeah, from
massively.
your seed-eating birds, you know what's going on with the grasses.
Yeah.
Insectivorous birds, insect populations plummeting.
Yeah.
And migratory birds, I mean, that's a different...
Tree nesting birds, like vultures, for example. Vultures, you know.
Vultures, like loss of nesting sites, loss of large trees. It's... birds can tell you a lot about the health of an ecosystem.
Yeah. It's cool listening to the two of you go back and forth, because in my mind anyways, the overarching theme is like connection. And like you have this dance of an interpretation of a species, and you're applying when you said they're human-like.
Yeah.
I've heard that said with so many species. And it's like, the more that we have this relationship, you're like, oh my gosh, their level of awareness, the communication, like how they navigate these landscapes, there's intelligence. But then, you know, growing up, people would be almost look down upon that perspective of be like, you shouldn't anthropomorphize a species. And I hear that, but I also hear that there's almost like a collective awareness that we're all speaking to, that there's consciousness or something, whatever you want to call it. There's an individuality within these species, and there's like there is a personality there. And I can imagine that no bird is the same. When you're saying that you can pick up on different accents of sorts, like there's an individual there that's 100%. Navigating this landscape.
I mean, we see it so today we weighed and measured that one chick. We can see the different individual personalities from chick to chick. Some of them pretend to be dead and they just don't move at all. Some of them relish the opportunity to be outside the nest, and they sit there and look around and they just enjoy life. Some of them are petrified, some of them are very aggressive. It's definitely, there's that individuality about them.
And I don't think it's... Do you want me to move out the sun?
If you can, just a little bit.
I don't think... Oh, sorry.
That's a nice one.
Is that better?
That's better.
Okay.
That's better,
I don't know if it's always anthropomorphizing, because I think it's more that we feel more like we're an animal. You know, we're humans, but we have evolved just like all the other species on the planet. You know, I think we too often see ourselves as superior to animals, but we are them. So I think that's that connection why people see them as human-like, I guess.
I think you're spot on. I think it's the biggest, what would the word be? Like, it's short-sighted, but it also creates this separation and this superiority and this idea that we're so unique. And it's not to say that we're not, but also there's these animals that are so unique, quote unquote. They operate in a different capacity and in a different frequency, but you can, like, I don't know what I experienced with the bull elephant, but when I was in Kruger and you have a moment with a bull elephant that's staring into your being, it feels like it's like fully aware of me and processing me and reading off on me. I can imagine you've had plenty of these experiences in nature.
Absolutely.
I think it's, I think that is one thing, is that humans love to be this, we are the most successful species that's ever existed, or whatever people want to be. Humans need to be made to feel special, that we are this unique species, and sure, maybe we are, but I'm not convinced. I mean, it depends on what you're measuring it by. How long have humans been around for? Not that long. How long have crocodiles and sharks been around for? Relatively unchanged. I mean, at the rate we're going, humans aren't going to be here for much longer. So, if the measuring point is how long a species exists, I mean, in the big scheme of things, humans are going to be probably the worst. That's what's going to happen unless things change, or unless technology advances to a point that can help us. But you can't all of a sudden us in the last 100 years say, humans are the most iconic pinnacle species that's ever existed. No.
Yeah.
Just no.
Can we flip that on its head, though? Because I think, to your point, in the past 100 years, catastrophic change has taken place worldwide.
Yeah.
But a big inspiration for the regenerative way is this idea that, like, there once was a time when we were custodians and stewarded landscapes and were part of landscapes, in relationship with landscapes. This idea that, like, I'm trying to challenge this notion that we're a plague on Earth, because I don't think we are. I think certain ideology and, like, materialism and short-sighted policy is right now, and it needs to fundamentally be challenged. But I think there's a way to get back to stewardship. And I see these examples around the world where change is taking place, regenerative agricultural being
100%,
one.
Yeah.
What, if we could wave a magic wand, like, what does stewardship look to the two of you? How could we bring the socio-ecological together?
I think it begins with people being involved in nature, and I think that's where the challenge lies, is because how do we live in this area. You also live in a relatively remote area. You're involved in nature. You grow to relish it and love it and want to be a part of it, not as an individual, but part of it. And I think if everyone had that opportunity to be part of nature, there would be less of this kind of separatist ideology kind of thing. But that's going to be the challenge, because if humans are expanding at the rate that population's growing at the rate it is, it means that landscapes are disappearing at a faster rate. So how do you incorporate a growing population in a diminishing environment? And it's going to have to be integrated somehow. It has to. People need to realize the value of the things living around them, whether it's the spider or the gecko or whatever it is living in your house. A spider's there because it's eating something. There's something to be eaten there, and I think a lot of people will take that opportunity to kill whatever's in their house. I think take a moment before killing it and just observe it and see why is it there. Is it harming me? Is it harming 99.9% of the time? No, it's not.
Very well said.
But
we just have as equal a place in the world as we do, if not more of an important role.
Yeah.
That's how I often think of it. I do think humans are a bit plague-like, and it's hard to flip that around. But I think maybe there will be this human migration. It's already happening. People are unable to sustain themselves during droughts, so people are migrating polewards, or to the equator, northwards. So human migration is already happening. But how can that rather than people migrating somewhere and they need to take up more space, can people, like they do in Hong Kong, can you build up? Can you utilise the space better? I think humans are just taking up.
I mean, that was actually we've travelled a little bit, but Hong Kong was a eye opener in a way I didn't expect. In that, we live in this landscape here, and all human settlement is
flat,
is linear, it's horizontal, which means you occupy this massive expanse of area from people. But when I saw the scale of things in Hong Kong, and thousands of people living in one block of flats, and then around that block of flats was just nature, I was actually a little bit taken aback, and I was like, there's a lot of nature around so many people
in a city.
And it was eye-opening.
Yeah.
It was eye-opening.
And then you get this area of Hoedspruit, which is just starting to sprawl. Even these wildlife estates, they're beautiful and amazing, but you have such a big footprint, you know, as one family, you know, in these wildlife estates. That's how can we be smarter? And I think in a lot of Africa, they're much further behind in terms of these sustainable solutions. You know, the solutions are there, but implementing them doesn't tend to happen. It's like, how can we get that happening a bit faster? You know, renewable energies and all those kind of things. So, yeah.
I think that there's an overarching theme of like consideration, and at the very least, like consider what your behavior, the impact that it's having. I know for myself, when I started to consider the food system, for example, it dramatically changed my paradigms of like, oh my gosh, like what am I contributing to? What am I supporting? And I think you don't know what you don't know, but there is a lot of, you know, people going through life with ignorance is bliss, and they don't want to engage. And
absolutely.
I think at the very least, once you do get exposed to what's going on, and at this point, I think, you know, the impacts of climate change around the world, the impacts of deterioration of ecological systems, water, like there's so many indicators that nobody can say that ignorance is bliss. Like there's got to be just that acknowledgement that we cannot continue on.
It's the age of information, so it's not like people don't have access to phones and all these things. It's that information's there. To say that you don't know about climate change is...
There's a lot of misinformation as well.
There's a lot of misinformation. True.
And people don't know. It's hard to know if everything you see and read is true or not. I think we're living in that era, especially with AI. All those AI videos going around.
It's bizarre.
It's crazy.
Bizarre.
I've been duped. I've definitely where you're like, oh my gosh, I can't believe this happened, and it didn't. Actually, objectively, it never did.
Misinformation. It's crazy.
It is so crazy. Two kind of final wrap-up questions. One, what should everybody know about ground hornbill? How should they support this species? Why should they support this species? What's some pieces that they should absolutely walk away with?
I think the one thing about, maybe for international, because probably that's where this is the target audience.
Yeah.
Well, international in terms of not South African. I think it's ground hornbills are almost that flagship of, there's other animals that exist out there that are absolutely incredible. Absolutely incredible, I think. You know, Africa is always seen as, it's the big five, it's the big hairies and scaries, but there are species out there that are, if not more, interesting, and as soon as you understand a little bit more about them, you'll become fascinated. Yeah.
Very well said. Yeah. Do you have anything you'd like to add?
I think they're prehistoric looking crazy dinosaur ways. You know, they look like a dinosaur. They've come from those times. Like,
if you ever watch Jurassic Park again, and you watch how the velociraptors run, I can promise you it's identical to a ground hornbill. Identical.
They are living dinosaurs. A lot of birds are these living dinosaurs that are still walking amongst us, and they're a kind of glimpse back into history before we were here.
Yeah.
And the ground hornbill is an awesome example of that.
Yeah, very, very cool. I love that. This question I've asked everybody, and it's really interesting to see how people answer it. What is one habit or practice that really connects and roots you to the natural world?
Silence, for me. And it's something I notice. It's something maybe it's not a habit or a practice, but if it's just listening. Just sitting and listening, not necessarily to my own thoughts, but listening to the animals around, the birds around me, and just being aware of what's going on out of my... Because as people, you know, you tend to dwell in your thoughts, and you really get thought into overthinking things and doing this and doing that, and I suppose it's a sense of meditation, but instead of focusing on your breathing, you're focusing on just what's going on around you. You know, if you hear a bird, you just listen to it, and you try and listen to everything at once rather than individually, to get a sense of nature, that it's not isolation and its own thing, it's everything working together.
Yeah. Very cool.
Yeah, that is very cool. How am I going to beat that? I don't know. I go for a run. Yeah, I don't know how to answer that. What do you think I do?
You go for runs. I mean, that is it's your thing, yeah.
Moving, in the trail running, like in nature, and you know, you see a lot of cool things. You just listen, you run, you look, you don't take it too seriously. That connects me. Yeah. It's not a good answer.
It is.
It is. No, it is.
Honestly, I probably would give a similar one.
Okay.
I think running is that interaction with the unknown, and I think for me anyways, not to hijack your answer, but like connection to the ground, breath, interpretation of the landscape, jumping from roots, the sounds, like there's so much that you're processing. I would love to get more in line with like where you're at, but that stillness is something that I battle, and I don't know what it is, and I think for a lot of people, they battle meditation and they don't just succumb to like being. And I can imagine it's quite valuable to just find yourself in a place of being and showing up to whatever is.
I mean, I don't think for me it's not something that it's not necessarily something I have every day or do every day, but it's something I notice. So I mean, here where we live, we have road noise and we have all these kinds of things, but when we're out in the field, especially, so some of my research, I need to go out at sunrise and listen for the birds, and as soon as there's that complete absence of human movement or anything, and it's exclusively nature, it's something I really pick up. So if I'm here and I go somewhere and it's something I just pick up on, that I'm like, it's very quiet, it's very absent of humans, and it's something I subconsciously notice,
and
no matter where.
Say it.
I always say it.
Bring it up
always
when you're in that situation, and it's good because then you make me realise that. It's a really good awareness, I think, of that, and how much, no matter where we live, you are always infiltrated by humans in some way, with a plane flying over or whatever. And when that's gone, it's really good to recognise it and appreciate it. I think that's really cool. And I was also thinking of those early mornings, and the ground hornbills have taught us a lot of patience. We've waited for many, many hours, sitting in a little pop-up tent in a hide, waiting for birds to come to a nest for hours. And we've... To
the point we would have half-an-hour stints
of napping. But it's definitely taught us a huge amount of patience and like appreciation for that stillness and sitting. You can't move around, you have to sit very still and very quiet, and I think we've become quite good at that.
Well, I think that is, I mean, not all species, but you know, humans are very go, especially now on the age of your phone. It's that instant gratification, constantly, you need that dopamine hit. But in nature, things just work on, a lot of species just work on their own time scales. I mean, you saw today with those ground hornbills, we sat there and that bird just looked at us for 20 minutes, just staring at us. And it's that slow, it's just like, breathe.
And it's funny because in that moment, I was waiting with my camera and I so wanted to get the shot of the wings open. And I was like, after 20 minutes, I was like, I gotta. And it did it right after practically. And it was like, that was the shot. If only I had the patience. But
I do feel like ground hornbills wait for you to move and do something before they do something like that.
Cal and Carrie, there's an overarching like theme of connection, and I think it's so cool, and it's definitely inspiring. Like, I think your deep dive into the work that you do and how it connects to your life and the partnership that you guys have built together, it's so cool. And I really sincerely hope that people become inspired by it and follow a similar path, because I think it is achievable, and this intuition that you both have followed has brought you to this moment and carved out this really cool life. And I just so appreciate the time that we've been able to share together and going out in the fields. And yeah, I've learned so much. So thank you very, very much.
Well, thanks for reaching out, and we both super stoked that you could join us, and we got to share a little bit of what we could do and what we do and what we try and do. There's a difference.
Thank you.
Thank you.